And so the question is, does John Wick 4 top the previous films in terms of the action?
I'm going to need a gun.
I thought you never asked.
Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Watch by Ashley, where we take a look at some of the new releases on the big streaming platforms and video on demand, and discuss whether or not they're worth the watch. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at the fourth installment of the John Wick franchise. And of course, it's John Wick Chapter 4. So let's get into it. Of course, you can check this film out on video on demand, and I'm sure it's going to hit all the big streaming platforms eventually. Chad Stahelski comes back as the director, and of course we have Keanu Reeves back as the title character John Wick.
My ring. My freedom.
So John Wick Chapter 4, of course, picks up where John Wick 3 ended, and we know he was kind of betrayed by Winston and thrown off of a building that looked like he would have definitely died from the fall, especially since he like bangs himself up in between. But anyways, John survived this, and he's obviously very mad. I mean, especially because the Bower Ring asked him, "Are you angry, John?" And he's all like, "Yeah." So this movie picks up from there, and we definitely see John kind of wreaking havoc with the High Table and getting revenge. There are a lot of new characters introduced to the film. John kind of goes back to his Belarusian roots, and we kind of see his family there. It's elaborated a bit more in the story in terms of the fact that John is an orphan, and he didn't necessarily pick this life. He was kind of just brought up in it, and so that's a really nice layer. Again, something else that they could expand on when they do the ballerina spin-off film. So they did a lot of world building in this movie. I don't want to get into the plot too much, and realistically, if you go to John Wick movie, it's not necessarily for the plot. You're there for the action. There's some action and some scenes in this movie that left me with a dropped jaw. I was so impressed and overwhelmed at the same time with this movie. It is a long movie. That's one of the other things that I know a lot of people commented on. It's 169 minutes of runtime here. I would like to say it goes by quickly, but there are some aspects of the movie that make it kind of feel like it's dragging on. And that hurts me to say because I really do love the John Wick universe. It's just that I finally learned that there can be a little too much of a good thing in some scenes here. So that was surprising. The things that you definitely would expect with this movie, like I said, it's very high on the action. It has a lot of interesting characters, great locations, great set designs here. Like they really did utilize the places where they filmed the movie. And as usual with the previous films, like they're in major cities, so it must have been very expensive to get these shots done. But they do it again in the same high quality, beautiful manner that they always do. Like a lot of the shots, especially in Paris, are just phenomenal, especially with the Arc de Triomphe. It was very nice to see. I love it when the bad guys are always just chilling out in the museums. Like that's like the bad guy hangout for everyone in these movies. They definitely don't disappoint in the fact that they've topped themselves from the previous movies. But what I would say is that they've lost a little bit of the essence of what makes a John Wick movie so fantastic. Is the movies are usually really well paced and they know when to stop a scene. My criticism of this movie would be like some of the scenes dragged on a little too long, or they were a little too unrealistic in a sense. And I know that John Wick isn't necessarily a realistic movie, but it's not over the top and unrealistic like Fast and Furious, I would say. There are some aspects that are grounded in reality. One scene that didn't really jive well with me is there's a scene in Paris where John is going up a flight of stairs. It's a very steep decline on these stairs if you're going down, but there's levels in between to kind of prevent what happens to John. So John is like 80% of the way up these stairs and he ends up falling down, and he falls all the way down to the bottom of the stairs, even though there's landings where he could have probably braced himself and stopped rolling down. So that kind of like irked me a little bit because the scene does drag on for quite a bit. And this movie doesn't need to drag scenes on and extend the runtime, but that's one gripe there. Another thing, like in terms of it like kind of losing the essence of the previous films, is I would say one of the reasons why I love John Wick 2 is the stunt work. I love the choreography of the close hand-to-hand combat, especially between Caspian and John. Like, there's some stunts with Keanu Reeves when he's battling two opponents at once. It just really reminded me of playing a video game like Assassin's Creed, where you lock onto one opponent in the battle, you attack them, and then the other opponents are waiting for you to finish. Kind of weird to explain, but that's how I felt watching it. So that kind of disappointed me. On the other side, another video game aspect that was actually good for this movie is there's a very intricate scene where we're having John and nobody kind of go through this house that's full of bad guys. and it's almost like a top-down effect, like a video game. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like if you're a gamer, that's like a really nice nod to the gaming industry, because it was just really high-paced action and it was like just very creative filmmaking, and I love that. So kudos to Stahelski for that scene. That was pretty awesome. I'll get into some of the characters that we're introduced to here, but of course we have returning to the film Laurence Fishburne as the Bowery King. We have Ian McShane again as Winston, the manager of the New York Continental Hotel. We have Lance Reddick, who is returning as the concierge.
A harbinger is here to see you, sir.
And rest in peace to Lance Reddick. Before this film had its premiere, he passed away unfortunately, so condolences to his family and friends. And you know, Lance Reddick definitely was a fan favorite. As I mentioned, there are a lot of new characters to the film. The most highly anticipated to join Keanu Reeves is Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen is a legend. He's a martial arts star overseas, so I was very excited to see him here. I wasn't sure in what capacity he would be in this film, but he plays kind of like an adversary for John. He's a hired assassin who has to stop John because John has gotten out of control. The twist with Kane, his character here, is that he's actually blind. So we have a blind assassin pursuing John Wick in this movie.
John? How are you?
We have Bill Skarsgård joining the cast as Marquis Vincent de Gramont.
This campaign is not to kill John Wick. It is to kill the idea of John Wick. And to do that, I must destroy everything that idea touches.
He's this interesting French member of the High Table who's kind of been assigned the task of cleaning up John Wick's mess. And John, of course, needs to have some friends left in this world. We get introduced to his old pal, Shimazu Koji. This is played by Hiroyuki Sanada.
Have you given any thought to where this ends? Friendship means little when it's convenient.
And he is the manager of the Osaka Continental. And then we have the up-and-coming actor, Canada's very own Shamier Anderson, who's playing Mr. Nobody.
I don't know you, but I know you. You a tracker?
And I think that we're going to see more of him, especially when it comes to the Continental show that they're going to be making. So he's left a bit ambiguous here. He lets us know what his intentions are, but I don't think we've seen all of the stops when it comes to him. I really do think that this movie is a moment in cinematic history because just the scope of some of the things that they pulled off here, like Chad Stahelski, my hat goes off to you. I mean, he went from being a stuntman to directing one of the most profitable franchises. Like, who would have thought? Of course, the big scene that was like mind-blowing and incredibly impressive, although unrealistic, was the scene where John ends up by the Arc of Triumph in Paris. So it's that beautiful arc that whenever you see like a postcard or any footage of Paris, it's there aside from the Eiffel Tower. It's like a big roundabout. So the traffic, of course, is moving in the circular motion, and it's constant movement. If you've ever seen it in person, it does look a bit overwhelming. So then to have John as a pedestrian in the middle of the circle fighting other assassins because there's an open contract on him and everyone wants a piece of him. Every citizen is a potential assassin going after him. And so while the traffic is still going through the Arc of Triumph, like John is fighting off all of these people. And it's just so intense and it's so grand, just the technical aspect of it. I was so impressed. Like, I know, of course, it's obviously stunt drivers and it's very well choreographed in that sense, but to be in control of all those moving parts and to put it on screen, that scene was so redeeming for the movie to me, because one of the things that really irked me a bit with the movie was the character of Kane, played by Donnie Yen. But I just didn't like the fact that he was blind. And it's not that I have a problem with blind characters, it's just that it wasn't practical or realistic to have a marksman be blind. Yes, there's a scene where he kind of explains how he fights in close contact with people, and I would have been totally fine if he was just like a swords master. Like, for me, that kind of makes more sense because maybe it's like higher focus and intuition than someone who's using their sight. But to have him like shooting people and to be involved in a showdown at the end, like, I thought it was kind of silly. It's just one of those aspects of John Wick that make it feel like it takes place in a universe that's not based in reality. My rating for the film is 7 out of 10. And I know that might seem a bit harsh or a bit low, especially since I do love Keanu Reeves and I do love John Wick and I really, really admire the world they've built here. But this film feels like a knockoff of the first two films. Like, it doesn't feel like a John Wick movie. It feels like a movie trying to be John Wick, if that makes sense. Like, the runtime was a little too long. As I pointed out, the stunts were a little off. So spoilers for the ending here. And to be honest with you, I don't really think that John died in terms of that whole big debate, like did John die, did he not die? I think that John has killed himself spiritually and he feels dead because he will no longer be able to salvage any of that life that he had with his wife.
And the only way John Wick will ever have freedom or peace now or ever is in death.
With Keanu Reeves and Stahelski, like they think they want to finish on top. They don't want to stretch it out so that people start hating the films or they end up becoming a parody of themselves. But they've also left the door open for them to possibly expand more, do more with John, because this movie made a lot of money. Like with a budget of $100 million, they were able to bring in $416 million, which is incredibly impressive. Of course, any film studio is going to want you to continue making movies. But those are my thoughts in regards to John Wick Chapter 4. Let me know in the comments below what your ranking is of the films. For me personally, I rank the films like from best to worst. It would be number 2, 1, 4, and then 3. I really didn't like 3. But that's my ranking of the franchise. Let me know in the comments below what yours is. And let me know if you are excited for Keanu's announcement that he's going to be doing a Netflix series for Berserker, which is his comic. So let me know if you're excited for that. But that's all I have for you today. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the content here but haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so, as it's definitely going to help me growing the channel and I really do appreciate that. So thanks, and until next time, take care. Bye!